Hey, what's up? So I got a request to talk about how my API BOX Consol is hooked up in my Patchbay. So the first thing I want to say is I really need another Patchbay. I had to squeeze a lot of stuff in a way that I wouldn't normally want to. You know, for anyone who hasn't set up a Patchbay, there really is an art to normaling, which is, you know, I guess let's just do the basics of a Patchbay. The way that the top row relates to the row right beneath it, like this is one bay, this is another, so this is three bays. There's three different relationships that can have, which is no normal, so there's no connection between these two necessarily. And then there's full normaling, where whatever came in to the top automatically comes out the bottom or flows to the bottom. And then there's half normaling, which where you can have this same flow that you have in full normaling and take a patch out of that to go somewhere else. So it's like a splitter almost. And then the other thing to consider is that there's different grounding schemes in Patchbays. So you can, for instance, you can have any pair of these, on these bays anyway, you can have them grounded to the chassis, which is like a shared ground for everything, you know, on the bay. You can have them isolated, so they're not, you know, so it's an isolated ground. It's not connected to anything. And then you can also have vertical. It's almost like a ground lift, and then you have vertically strapped. So this and this are sharing a ground, but not with this and not with that. So there's various reasons why you might want to do certain isolation schemes, but particularly with mic preamps, sometimes there can be, if everything is grounded to the chassis, sometimes you can have issues with phantom power, you know, traveling over the ground and, you know, weird things like that, and just grounding issues in general. But I've found, for the most part, aside from mic preamps, chassis grounding is usually the best solution, but, you know, you have to experiment a bit. Keep the music going. So anyway, let's get into my setup. Is that I have snakes from you know, booths and live rooms. There's 32 channels of lines running in to the control room, and so those are, the top row are my mic inputs, and those are normaled to mic preamp sends. So for the console, you know, it's 1 through 8. There's only 8 mic preamps in the box console. And then, you know, we just seamlessly start going to the outboard preamps. So I have, you know, 4 of these BAE vintage Neve style. Here's a pair of really beautiful DW Fern mic preamps. I would consider these my A channels. You know, these are my first choice for everything. And then there's, you know, like we have these Chandler TG2s, and then these are Hazelrig preamps. So these are the same preamp circuit as the red ones, but they have equalization, and there's other slight differences in them, but very, very good. And then we have an 8-channel Focusrite ISA as well. Oh, and Great River. Yeah, really fantastic and unique Neve style preamp. Anyway, so all of those flow on the bay. We do APIs 1 through 8. Then the Neves, I got a blank there just to fill, and it goes on like that. So so the signal travels in normals to these. So you basically just choose, you know, out by the snake, which preamp you want, and just plug into the right number there. Then the preamp returns, and, you know, to have the return is very convenient for the outboard preamps because there's no, you know, most of them don't have inserts. So if you're going to put in a compressor or an equalizer before going to the computer, that's where you're going to do it. You're going to take your preamp return, travel to all your outboard gear, and for the box console, there is a special direct out right from the preamp, and it's switchable on the console. And that direct pre button, that's what that would do. And that I believe that's before the 500 series, and certainly before the compressor, which can go on any of the first 4 channels, and pre-fader and so on and so forth. I think it's right after the mic preamp. I think that's what I did. I wired those. I don't remember because I don't use them ever. The normal direct out from the console is post fader, and that's what I want every time, because having the output fader and having the 500 series, and also each of these channels has an insert. So if I want to put a compressor that's not that into any of these channels, I need to use what I would call the normal direct out, which is post fader, and that's the default. You don't need to press any buttons for that. And so I have the direct outs for 1 through 8 wired straight to my Lynx interface channels 1 through 8. So I don't have to. It doesn't go through the patch bay. I don't have to do anything. It just goes right there. Direct wire is always the best solution, right? So, but on the outboard preamps, so I have sends to the Lynx right underneath the returns from the preamp. So they normal. So if I don't want to put in any processing, you could literally, without doing any patching at all, go from snake to preamp, back from preamp to Lynx to the computer with no patching. And that's the kind of, that's the elegance of figuring out your normaling, trying to minimize patching if possible. So there's all of that. Then you get into, so I have a 32 channel interface. So the outputs from this interface 1 through 24 are going directly from the interface to the line inputs on the box, no patch bay. And the logic there is I bought this console as a summing console, and it's one or the other. Either I'm going to want to use it and sum with it, I didn't spend all this money for nothing, or if I'm doing an in the box thing, that's going to just come out of a stereo pair. So all of these 24 outs, there's no advantage. I mean, to adding flexibility to put it in the patch bay, it's just wasted cables and connectors. So again, 24 outs directly into the line inputs. And, it's a little weird because API kind of tried to set up this board really to have like recording world and mixing world and have them not, never should they meet, and to the point where they even started they numbered these channels starting at 1, but I never ever use it that way. It's to me there's 24 line inputs, and that's the way I use it. So it's 1 through 8. This is 9, and I've seriously considered actually just making labels to change these numbers, because these will never be 1, 2, 3 for me. They will always be 9, 10, 11. And that's the way they're numbered in the patch bay too. So every single one of these channels, these 24 channels, and the stereo bus have inserts. This is where I was saying it gets crowded and it's not really as smooth as I would like it to be. I need another bay. But these are my inserts. Sorry, it's out of focus. And you have insert sends, And then you have, in there somewhere, there's insert returns. And what you try to do is you try to get things to normal. So for instance, the inserts to channels 1 through 8, weirdly on the console, there's this patching available to try to make the 500 series gear available, you know, as like a standalone rack. And nobody I've ever seen that has this console has ever used it that way. It was totally a wasted effort by API, mainly because they didn't put, you know, they didn't put a switch on it. So basically there are jacks in the back of the console to go directly into the 500 series, but if you use them, if you actually plug anything into those jacks, it disconnects the signal flow from both the mic input and the line input. So you can't, you wouldn't be able to leave them plugged in anyway. You'd have to be jumping back there all the time to plug it and unplug it. So the answer is nobody uses it that way. A lot of people just don't use that rack at all. They just don't put anything in their 500 series because they don't want to waste the resources, you know. Sorry about the picture. You know, they want to have their 500 series gear available if they need it elsewhere. For me, you know, my attitude is they might as well be there. You know, like it's really convenient. When I'm recording, you know, I definitely love having EQs built into the channels. It's, you know, that's the shortest signal path. It's not, again, not in the patch bay. You know, the mic input comes right into those 500 series. And if I'm mixing, you know, it's a matter of choice. It's like if I'm mixing something that I want to send, you know, to the Helios, so I'll just patch it to 7 and 8, or, you know, or the 550Bs or whatever. You know, I'll make that choice based on the gear, you know, the need, and that's where it is. So right now, that's working for me. Like I haven't been in a position where I was like, darn, I wish I could route channel 10 to that EQ. Like that just hasn't happened yet. You know, if it does, I'll pull them out. But that is, I've talked about this in other videos. That's a weird part of the console, and strangely, you know, if they were gonna do that, if they were gonna make it the 500 series rack available as a standalone piece, then they should have put, you know, switches here that would move, yeah, that would put it in a different bus and still leave the line inputs available. You know, like that's what would have made sense, and it really wouldn't have been that complicated. So I'm surprised that they didn't do that, but they didn't. So anyway, at any rate. So what gets a little weird is the insert sends on channels 1 through 8 are also like they double duty as the, you know, the returns, if you will, like from you know, to the 500 rack, but I don't even remember what the labeling says on the back. It's pretty clear what they are. You know, the bottom line is that those are the insert sends. So on my bay, sorry if I'm confusing everybody, but it is a little confusing. But on my bay, you know, it says returns because I made these labels when I first got the console. I'm probably going to change them and only say insert sends because that's really what they are. And what I did was I actually put the names of the equalizers that I have, you know, but it's kind of silly. It really just needs to be channels 1 through 8 insert sends. I mean, that's really what they are. So what you see is I've actually placed certain gear directly under those insert sends. So like those Helios EQs actually normal to the purple MC77 compressors. And there's a pair of the BAE equalizers, the Neve equalizers that normal to the LA2 compressors. These guys. So that's pretty sweet. And if you think, I mean, that's really nice too, because like for like anything in those channels, so like, you know, here are the Helios in 7 and 8. All I have to do is press the insert in, and that's routed to, like, I mean, this is already, the EQ is already in the line, but that automatically routes that channel to this and back, because I have the insert return directly under it, right? And same thing with, so channels 9 and 10 here are actually, that's actually even better. That insert send is normaled to the BAE EQ, and then the output of the BAE EQ is normal to the LA2. So, man, is that a sweet channel. Again, all I have to do is press the insert button on 9, and it will automatically route to this EQ and that compressor and back. No patching. And, you know, that's the art of normaling, is, you know, making those kinds of choices and just saying, well, you know, this is a way I really like to work the most often. So if I can make that a situation where there's no patching required, that's best for everybody. But the flexibility is still there. I can still take the insert send and patch it anywhere I want. I can grab it on the output of the EQ and patch that anywhere I want. You know, if there's a reason why I want to do something differently, that I can just patch it. But that normaling, that's the art. You know, that's and it can drive you crazy when you're planning it. You know, it can get dizzying. I mean, I think, like, I have these 3 bays, like 288 patch points or something. So trying to lay it all out can really get involved. Now, again, this is a 32 channel converter, so there's 24, I said there's 24 returns going directly to the line inputs here. That leaves 8 unaccounted for. So I have these here in orange. And so my, you know, like, I have my 2 mix generally is coming out of like 31 and 32. I just have that like set up for that. And I have that going into my, now I have like the 2-track inputs on the board here in the bay, like the inputs are in the bay. So I have this patched, and ideally I'd have that normaled. So again, like I need to rearrange things a little bit. I want to get another bay and then do a whole new rearrangement. It's hard to do when you don't actually, you know, when you first get everything, you have to figure out your work style. But so I'm gonna actually set that up to normal. So when I'm working in the box, and also my system output for the Mac is set up this way too. So when I'm playing YouTube videos or whatever else, it's coming out of 31 and 32, and it's going to the 2-track input. So you know, like when I'm doing a mix, I have all the individual channels, you know, coming up, and I'm sending out of the main output, but that's going back into the computer, and I'm hitting a brick wall limiter on the input channel, and recording that in real time, and that's how I'm printing my mixes. So, but I want to be able to hear that brick wall limiter, like that last piece I'm hitting on the way in. So my monitor of that is like that one stereo input is going to 31 and 32, and so what happens is, like, if I want to hear it before it hits the brick wall limiter, I can, you know, before it goes back to the computer, I can just do the program. But if I want to hear it afterwards, I just switch to that 2-track, and really it pretty much stays in that 2-track mode most of the time, because again, that's my output for everything else, you know, for working in the box, for the system, for everything. So I don't know if I've done this too quickly. If you have questions, definitely hit me up in the comments. I'm trying to think if there's anything really that it didn't cover. you know, again, the master channel has its own insert, send and return, and I use that a lot. Like even when I'm mixing in the box now, like my system right now, I just got the SSL UC1. So what I'm trying to do is do all of my mixing in the box, not this box, but the computer, using that and using the SSL native plugins so that I have full recall, instant recall. But the one thing I'm doing analog is like I'm having all these channels in bypass fader mode. The API box has a 0 dB button that puts it in unity gain and bypasses the fader, so I don't have to worry about recalling fader positions. You know, it's just that, yeah, it's that simple. So it goes through all of these channels, and when I'm doing that, these are just at 0. They're all at 0, so there's nothing to remember. It's just unity. It's going through the master, hitting the built-in 527 compressors, and then after that it goes to the insert, and I'm sending to, you know, some sweet mastering gear. Comes back, and I send it to the computer and brick wall limiter, and then it comes back on the 2-track for monitoring. So that's my system. That's how I'm doing it right now. I really think of it as the best of both worlds. You know, I get the control from the SSL, and also like the tactile control of the hardware is phenomenal. It's amazing, and the new plugins rock. They're just great. The SSL native channel strip 2 and the bus compressor. They're really nice. So you know, I get that the speed and the control of using that. I get the instant recall because it's all in plugins, and all of the flexibility, you know, presets and all that stuff. But I get the sound of the analog console of the API. And, you know, you may feel that I'm underutilizing it because if I was using the faders, I could be pushing certain channels harder than others. You know, to me, you know, it's not worth it. Like what I gain from being able to do, from having full instant recall in the box, and also, you know, like I'm doing all that stuff on the way in. I'm hitting, you know, I'm getting the colors that I really want on the way in for the most part. Now, every single insert on this board has API transformers, so you are getting some extra mojo just from going through the channels, just from going through the inserts. If you're using them, like so the master channel insert, for instance, I'm hitting transformers when I do that. Not to mention the gear too. And in terms of recalling the little bit of analog gear that I'm using in the master channel, the Patch Rat app for the phone, normally it's a subscription, but if you buy any gear from Audioscape, you get free subscription. So my recommendation is buy some sweet gear from Audioscape and get your free subscription. And Patch Rat has all of this hardware. It even has the Fern. It has like these esoteric pieces. And you know, for the stereo gear, all I need to do is document one side. So it's really quick. It's really easy to document. And you know, things like this equalizer, literally everything on it is stepped. So it's very easy to document. Yeah, honestly, it takes me like less than 5 minutes to document everything and recall it. The Patch Rat even has the box, and not only that, it has them in separate pieces. So there's a separate piece just for the compressor, and there's even a separate piece just for the master, you know, for the fader position of this one fader. Yeah. So you know, again, the documenting's really easy. So switching mixes is really fast, really easy. And it's working great for me. You know, I said somewhere that, like, you know, that the SSL UC1 system is fantastic. The plugins are great. It does sound like an SSL, but I have what every SSL really needs, which is an API to run it through afterwards. It's just a really beautiful, it's a beautiful combination. I'm so happy. And the functionality that I get between those two things, you really can't match that until you're up to something like, you know, a Neve Genesis Black. You're up to an $80,000 console. And on some ways, I have more flexibility than that. So, you know, it's a pretty good deal. I'm very happy. And that's it. So again, hit me up in the comments if you have any questions. But I'm really thrilled with this whole system, and I'm looking forward to adding that extra patch bay and reorganizing over there a little bit. By the way, those are, it's worth mentioning, those are Redco patch bays. With my research, you can't beat them in terms of, you know, patch bays can be, good patch bays can be expensive. You know, those are about 500 each, and they have, you know, all the options you would possibly want in terms of not only normaling, but you know, ground switching for each pair of channels. It's not quite as accessible in terms, it's not on the front panel like some of them have, but it's pretty accessible. It's like, you know, you pull it out and the dip switches are all right there. It's pretty easy to manipulate. And Redco stuff is very high quality. You know, beyond buying directly from Redco, I've had very good experiences buying their stuff from Vintage King and also from Trace Audio in Nashville. Also, little tip, these patch cables, if you find the right SKU number at Vintage King, or Trace can get them too, probably. So these are technically Redco cables, but they're actually Mogami cable, and you know, they're extremely high quality, and they're really cheap because they're molded. If you get under a certain length, they're molded, and you know, so they're like $10 each. You can get, like, I think these black ones are 2 feet. You might even be able to get 3 feet in these pre-molded versions, and you know, you have to be careful because, you know, they have other SKUs for, you know, for TT cables that are 25 each and more, but if you find the right one, they're, you know, they're like $10, and they're great. They're as good as you could possibly hope for. So that's my little tip. All right, take care. Bye.